Horse would be devoured by a mountain lion, but the millionaire's cruel plan didn't go as expected. The animal was left tied up, bleeding, at the mercy of the wilderness and the elements. But someone appeared, and what seemed like a simple rescue became the beginning of a dangerous revelation. Now the truth haunts the powerful like a shadow that can no longer be contained. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. We'll continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear in your life. The rain fell relentlessly on the small town of Golden Ridge in rural Montana. August Mitchell watched the drops stream down the window of his ranch, like tears from a sky that seemed to be crying with him. 3 years had passed since his wife, Helen, had departed after a long illness, leaving him alone on this property that once overflowed with life. "Mr. Mitchell, I'll leave the herbs you asked for here on the table," said Mrs. Zoe, the only person who came to the ranch twice a week to help with cleaning and prepare a few meals. "Thank you, Zoe. You can leave early today. This rain will get worse," he replied, without taking his eyes from the window. At 58, August had transformed into a shadow of his former self. The former town veterinarian now lived as a recluse, cultivating medicinal herbs and avoiding any contact beyond what was necessary. His only company was Serenity, a mule with a temperament as stubborn as his own. When the rain diminished to a fine drizzle, he decided to walk through the woods near his property to gather some roots. The smell of wet earth and damp leaves always brought some comfort to his restless spirit. It was then that he detected a different odor, something that his experience as a veterinarian immediately recognized: an injured animal. Following his instinct, August entered a denser part of the forest. What he found made his heart tighten, in a way it hadn't for years. A horse tied to a tree so thin that its ribs were visible beneath its dirty coat. The animal had deep wounds on its legs and back, and the rope that bound it was embedded in its neck, preventing it from even lying down. "My God," he murmured, approaching slowly. The horse, a chestnut that must once have been majestic, could barely keep its eyes open. Its gaze, however, met August's with a silent plea that spoke directly to the man's soul. "Who would do this to you?" he whispered, gently touching the animal's muzzle. In that moment, something awakened within August, a spark that had been dormant since Helen's departure. Carefully, he cut the ropes that held the horse and covered it with his jacket. The animal was too weak to stand. "I'm going to get you out of here. You're going to be okay." Using his experience, an improvisation, he built a sort of sled with branches and his reinforced jacket. With Serenity's help, he began to pull the horse's nearly lifeless body through the forest toward his ranch. The news spread quickly through the village. "August found a horse barely alive in the forest," they said. "He's trying to save it." Meanwhile, at the luxurious Holy Cross farm, owned by powerful agribusiness entrepreneur Robert Newman, the information arrived as an annoyance. "What do you mean a horse was found in the woods that border our land?" Robert questioned his foreman, Jack. "I don't know the details, boss. I just heard that the retired veterinarian, Mr. Mitchell, found the animal and took it to his ranch." Robert swallowed hard, adjusting his expensive tie. "I want you to find out more about this, discreetly." At the other end of town, in a small veterinary clinic, Julia Fields, newly graduated and newly arrived in town, received an unexpected call. "Dr. Fields? This is Zoe. I work for Mr. Mitchell. He needs urgent help with an animal." Julia arrived at August's ranch with her emergency kit as the sun set on the horizon. The property, though simple, showed signs of a place that had known better days. A meticulously organized medicinal garden contrasted with the wooden house weathered by time. "Mr. Mitchell?" she called, knocking on the half-open door. "Back here, in the shed," a deep voice responded. Upon entering the small stable, Julia came face to face with a scene that left her speechless. The retired veterinarian was kneeling beside a chestnut, horse in deplorable condition, cleaning wounds with an herbal infusion. "My God, what happened to him?" she asked, approaching quickly. "Found him tied up in the forest, abandoned to—" August didn't complete the sentence, swallowing the word he didn't want to pronounce. "To suffer." Julia examined the animal with professional care, but couldn't Hide the emotion in her eyes. The wounds are deep, some are infected. The malnutrition is severe, and there are rope marks that suggest he was tied up for days. Who would do something like this? Someone without a soul, August replied dryly. Over the following hours, the two worked in silence, only exchanging necessary technical information. Julia admired the precision with which the retired veterinarian applied his knowledge, blending traditional medicine with natural remedies she only knew from theory. You really know your craft, Mr. Mitchell. I'm impressed with these herbal mixtures. A slight smile appeared on the man's wrinkled face. 40 years taking care of animals in these parts teach you some things that don't come from books, Doctor. When they finished the emergency procedures, it was already past midnight. The horse was breathing with less difficulty, but its condition was still critical. He'll need constant care, Julia said, putting away her instruments. I can come back early tomorrow. I'll stay with him tonight. I won't leave him alone, August stated, pulling a chair near the animal. In that case, I'll accept a coffee before I go. I think we both need it. In the simple kitchen, as the water boiled, Julia noticed the photographs on the wall. A woman with a gentle smile appeared next to August in almost all of them. My wife, Helen, he explained, noticing the young woman's gaze. She left us 3 years ago, cancer. I'm sorry, Julia replied sincerely. She was also passionate about animals. We turned this ranch into a small refuge for a time. After she was gone, well, I closed myself off. The coffee was served in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. It was Julia who broke the silence. Why do you think someone would do this to a horse? August sighed deeply. There are people who see animals only as property, Doctor. When they no longer serve their purpose, they discard them. The next morning, the news of the rescued horse had already spread throughout Little Golden Ridge. At the town's diner, the residents were commenting on the case. I heard the animal was in terrible condition, said Mrs. Carman, the establishment's owner. They say it was abandoned on purpose, added the mailman. In the corner of the restaurant, Jack, Robert Newman's foreman, listened attentively while having his coffee, making mental notes to report to his boss. At Holy Cross Farm, Robert was receiving a visit from his daughter, Megan, who had just returned from Boston, where she was studying veterinary medicine. Dad, I heard about the rescued horse as soon as I arrived. I want to visit Mr. Mitchell's ranch to see if I can help somehow. Robert choked on his morning whiskey. Don't get involved in this, Megan. We have more important matters to discuss. The farm expansion, remember? But Dad, they say the animal was cruelly abandoned. As a veterinarian, I can't ignore this. The sun was already high when Megan Newman parked her imported car in front of August's modest ranch. Dressed in simple clothes, but which still betrayed her wealthy origin, she hesitated before knocking on the door. As the daughter of the EI2, most powerful man in the region, she was accustomed to looks of adulation or resentment, rarely neutrality. Julia was the one who answered, surprised to recognize Robert Newman's daughter. Megan? What are you doing here? I'm a veterinarian too, Julia. Or almost. I still have 1 semester to go. I came to offer help, she replied, nervously adjusting her hair. We can set aside our family's rivalries when it comes to an animal suffering, can't we? The two had met at a veterinary conference in Boston, but they belonged to different worlds in Golden Ridge. August appeared at the door with a suspicious expression. Robert Newman's daughter on my property. What do you want here, young lady? Mr. Mitchell, she came to help, Julia interceded. Megan has specialized in equines. After a moment of hesitation, the veterinarian gave way, leading them to the stable. The chestnut horse was lying on fresh straw. Its breathing more regular, but its gaze still distant. We gave him serum, antibiotics, and painkillers, Julia explained. The wounds were cleaned and treated, but there's still a long way to go. Megan approached slowly, examining the animal with professional and gentle eyes. He has characteristic markings of a racehorse, she observed. See this muscle pattern. Despite the malnutrition, and this almost faded mark on the flank, and it looks like a registration tattoo. August frowned. Racing? I thought he was a common farm horse. Definitely not, Megan confirmed, gently caressing the animal's neck. This horse had a different past before being abandoned. While the young veterinarians worked together, applying medications and checking the animal's vital signs, August observed with growing curiosity. Robert Newman's daughter didn't display the air of superiority he expected. "Why do you care so much?" he finally asked. "Your father isn't exactly known for his compassion toward animals." Megan stiffened but answered without hostility. "Not all children follow in their parents' footsteps, Mr. Mitchell. I chose veterinary medicine precisely because I've always disagreed with how animals are treated in traditional agribusiness." A heavy silence settled in the environment, broken only by the soft sounds Julia made while organizing the medications. "I'll prepare some tea," said August, leaving the two young women alone. "He doesn't trust me," Megan whispered. "Give it time." Mr. Mitchell lost much more than his wife in those years. He lost his faith in people. Late in the afternoon, while the three people were caring for the horse, the sound of an engine announced an unexpected visit. A luxury car was raising dust in the ranch yard. "My father," Megan murmured, turning pale. Robert Newman got out of the vehicle with the imposing air of someone accustomed to command. Tall, with graying hair and an impeccable suit despite the rural heat, he surveyed the place with calculating eyes before approaching. "Megan, I've been looking for you everywhere. What are you doing in this place?" "I'm helping with a rescued horse, Dad. I'm a veterinarian, remember?" Robert ignored the comment, turning to August, who had come out to receive him with a closed expression. "Mitchell, it's been a while. Still playing animal healer?" "What do you want here, Newman?" August retorted without beating around the bush. "Just picking up my daughter. And since I'm here taking a look at this famous horse everyone's talking about," he replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Something in Robert's posture, in the way his eyes avoided the stable, triggered an alarm in August. "You know this horse, don't you?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Jack, who was accompanying Robert, shifted nervously beside his boss. "Don't be ridiculous," Robert replied, but a slight tremor in his voice betrayed him. "Why would I know some random horse found in the woods?" "Maybe because it's not just any horse," Julia intervened, watching the scene from the stable door. Megan identified registration marks. This animal was a racehorse, and quite a valuable one from what it seems. The silence that followed Julia's words was broken by the weak whinny of the horse in the stable. Robert adjusted his tie, a nervous gesture that didn't go unnoticed. "Racehorses exist by the thousands in this country," he said, regaining his composure. "Megan, let's go. I have an important dinner with investors tonight." "I'm not going, Dad," Megan replied with surprising firmness. "This animal needs continuous care, and I've committed to help." The businessman shot an angry look at his daughter, but contained himself in the presence of witnesses. "As you wish, but don't forget who pays your tuition," he warned before turning to August. "As for the horse, if you need money for care, I can make a donation. After all, I'm known for my generosity with, let's say, unusual causes." "Keep your money, Newman," August replied dryly. "I prefer my honest poverty." After Robert left, leaving a cloud of dust and tension, Megan seemed uncomfortable. "I'm sorry about my father. He's not an easy person." "You don't need to apologize for his actions," August replied, his tone softer now. "Come, let's see how our patient is responding to the medications." Over the following days, a routine was established at the ranch. Julia would come in the morning before opening her clinic in town. Megan would appear in the afternoon, bringing equipment and medications she obtained through her college contacts. August remained constant, caring for the horse in the early hours, whispering stories that no one else heard. On one of those nights, when silence dominated the ranch and only the light crackling of the oil lamp illuminated the stable, the horse finally stood up. With trembling legs, it managed to stand for a few minutes before lying down again. August, who was dozing in a nearby chair, woke up in time to witness the moment. "You're a warrior, aren't you?" he whispered, approaching to caress the animals. "Muzzle. I think I'll call you brave." The next morning, August shared the news with enthusiasm that surprised even himself. He stood up for almost 5 minutes. Julia smiled to see the sparkle in the eyes of the retired veterinarian, a man who, according to town gossip, had lost the will to live after his wife's passing. "That's fantastic, Mr. Mitchell. It means the nerves in his legs weren't permanently damaged. The news of the horse's gradual recovery began to circulate around town. People who barely knew August started appearing at the ranch, bringing fresh hay, carrots, apples. A neighbor brought her 8-year-old grandson, Johnny, who timidly asked to visit the Warrior horse. The boy, who suffered from autism spectrum disorder, rarely connected with strangers, but upon seeing Brave, his eyes lit up. "Can I give him an apple, Grandma?" he asked in a soft voice. August, surprised by the request, nodded and showed the boy how to offer the food with an open palm. Brave, despite his weakness, approached gently and accepted the gift. Johnny laughed, a crystalline sound that filled the stable. "He liked me." "Of course he did," August replied, moved. Animals recognize gentle souls. The boy's grandmother, with tears in her eyes, explained that Johnny rarely demonstrated such a connection with anyone. "Can we come back tomorrow?" she asked. "I've never seen him so present." So, in addition to medical visits, Brave began to receive daily visits from Johnny. The boy would read stories to the horse, tell about his day at school, share his fears and joys. And Brave would listen, his large brown eyes fixed on the small human, establishing a connection that transcended words. Megan, who witnessed one of these visits, was deeply touched. "This is amazing, Mr. Mitchell. Brave is becoming a kind of therapy for Johnny." "I think it's mutual," replied the veterinarian, observing the interaction. "Brave also needs a friend who doesn't judge him for his scars." That night, after everyone had left, August sat on the bench outside the house, contemplating the stars. For the first time in 3 years, he didn't feel completely alone. The soft sound of Brave's movements in the stable reminded him that there was life beyond loss, that new bonds could be formed even when one believed the heart was closed forever. He didn't notice when Julia approached, bringing a thermos. "I brought tea," she said, sitting beside him. "I thought you might want company." Brave's progress surprised everyone. After 3 weeks of intensive care, the horse could already walk around the small pasture behind the stable. His wounds were healing, his coat regaining its shine and his eyes showing life again. Johnny, in his daily visits, was greeted with soft whinnies that made the boy vibrate with joy. One afternoon, while August and Johnny were brushing Brave, in the pasture the boy made an unexpected observation. "Uncle August, why does Brave have the same mark as Mr. Roberts' horses?" August froze, the brush suspended in air. "What mark, Johnny?" "This one." The boy pointed to a small area on the animal's flank, where, now that the hair was growing, a mark could be more clearly distinguished, a stylized HC inside a circle. "How? Do you know it's the mark of Robert Newman's horses? My grandma cleans his house on Thursdays. Sometimes she takes me along and I see the horses in the stables. They all have this mark." August felt a chill run down his spine. The suspicion he had been nurturing since Robert's visit now gained more defined contours. He waited until the grandmother picked up Johnny and immediately called Julia and Megan. When the two arrived, August showed them the mark the boy had pointed out. "HC," Julia read aloud. "Holy Cross." "Holy Cross," Megan confirmed, turning pale. "It's the mark of my father's stables. All the breeding animals on the farm are marked this way." A heavy silence fell over the three. It was August who finally verbalized what everyone was thinking. "So Brave belonged to your father and was deliberately abandoned to suffer in the forest." Megan covered her face with her hands. "I can't believe my own father." Her voice failed. "But why? He always prided himself on the thoroughbred horses he raises." "Maybe Brave wasn't up to his expectations anymore," Julia suggested bitterly. "An investment that was no longer profitable." August recalled the wounds on the animal's legs when he found him. "Brave must have suffered some injury that prevented him from racing. For your father, a horse that doesn't race is a useless horse." Megan felt the weight of the words like a physical blow. Throughout her life, she had tried to ignore the cruel side of her father's business, focusing on her own path. Now the truth was before her, impossible to deny. "We need concrete evidence," she said, drying her tears. "If we're going to accuse my father, We need to be absolutely certain." "But how?" asked Julia. "Your word against his, and in this town's hierarchy, we know who carries more weight." August remained silent for a few moments, his gaze fixed on Brave, who was grazing peacefully, unaware of the storm that was forming. "Jack," he finally said, "your father's foreman. He seemed too nervous when Robert came here." "Jack has worked for my father for over 20 years, Megan replied. "I doubt he'd say anything against him." "Unless," August hesitated, "unless he doesn't know he's talking." That night at the town bar, Jack was drinking his usual whiskey when August sat down beside him. The veterinarian rarely frequented the establishment, and his presence caused curiosity. "Around for me and my friend here," August said to the bar owner, surprising Jack. "Since when are we friends, Mitchell?" the foreman asked, suspiciously. "Since we share a secret," August replied in a low voice, "the secret of a chestnut horse marked with the initials of Holy Cross." Jack turned pale, his glass trembling slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. And you also know that I have enough evidence to take this story further. The question is, when the bomb explodes, who will protect themselves? Robert Newman certainly has the resources to come out unscathed, but the loyal foreman..." The words hung in the air, heavy as lead. Jack downed his whiskey in one gulp. "What do you want from me?" "The truth." After a few more drinks and much persuasion, Jack finally yielded. With a voice choked by alcohol and guilt, he told how Lightning, Brave's real name, had been the main breeding stallion at Holy Cross Farm until he suffered a serious injury during training. The vet said he would need months of expensive treatment. With no guarantee of full recovery for breeding, the boss was furious. He ordered me to get rid of the problem, said to take the animal far away, and Jack didn't complete the sentence, but the meaning was clear. "But you didn't have the courage to put him down," August concluded. "No," Jack admitted, tears in his eyes. "I thought leaving him in the woods would be more merciful, that it would be quick. I didn't imagine he would resist for so long." August returned to the ranch with a heavy heart. Jack's confession, discreetly recorded on his cell phone, confirmed his suspicions, but also brought an enormous responsibility. Julia and Megan were anxiously waiting for him on the porch. "Did you get it?" Julia asked as soon as he got out. "Go of the car." August nodded, playing the recording. As Jack's choked voice revealed the sordid details of Lightning's abandonment, Megan covered her mouth with her hands, tears silently streaming down her face. "My own father," she murmured when the recording ended. "All for money." "What do we do now?" Julia questioned. "Should we take this to the police?" August sighed, running his hand through his gray hair. Animal abuse is rarely taken seriously by authorities, especially when the accused is the most powerful man in the region. "We need more. We need public exposure," Megan concluded, wiping away tears with renewed determination. "My father fears only two things: losing money and losing his public image." The next morning, while caring for Brave, or Lightning, as they now knew was his real name, the three developed a plan. Megan, using her contacts at the veterinary school, would get a respected professor to come examine the horse and issue an official report on the cruel treatment it had suffered. Julia would use her connections with animal protection NGOs to give visibility to the case. And August, with his knowledge of the local community, would mobilize the residents. What they didn't expect was how quickly the news would spread. Johnny, in his innocence, commented to classmates at school about Mr. Robert's horse that was abandoned to suffer. Within hours, the rumor was circulating throughout Little Golden Ridge, gaining details and provoking outrage. Robert Newman was quick to react. Late that same afternoon, his luxury car parked abruptly in front of August's ranch. The businessman got out, accompanied by his lawyer and two intimidating-looking security guards. "Mitchell!" he shouted, advancing across the yard. "What's this?" "Story they're spreading about me." August calmly came out of the house, followed by Julia. Megan, who was in the stable, discreetly joined them. "It's not a story, Newman." "They're facts," August replied, keeping his voice firm. Lightning, your award-winning stallion, was found by me, tied up and abandoned in the forest for a slow agony. Robert turned pale at hearing the horse's name, but recovered quickly. Absurd. I have no idea what you're talking about. Lightning was sold months ago to a stud farm in Canada. Lie! Megan's voice cut through the air like a whip. She advanced, positioning herself next to August. We know the truth, Dad. Lightning is here, alive, with your registered mark and the scars of his abandonment. Robert stared at his daughter, astonished. Megan, you're betraying me for a horse. I'm choosing right over wrong, something you should have taught me. Robert's lawyer stepped forward, nervously adjusting his glasses. This is defamation, Ms. Newman. Your father could sue you along with these collaborators. Lawsuit? Julia took a step forward, her cell phone in hand. Interesting that you mentioned that, because the video I just posted showing the condition in which Lightning was found with the Holy Cross mark clearly visible already has more than 10,000 views, and it's growing. Robert's phone rang at that moment. He answered, stepping away a few paces. His expression changed as he listened. That of the person on the other end. When he hung up, his face was livid. That was the press office. Reporters from the capital are arriving. Some of my sponsors have already contacted me, demanding explanations. The security guards exchanged uncomfortable looks. The lawyer whispered something in Robert's ear, who pushed him away with a brusque gesture. What do you want? He finally asked, arrogance replaced by calculating caution. Money. Is that it? We want justice, August replied. And a better future for Lightning and other animals like him. Megan stepped forward, looking her father in the eyes. I have a proposal. Holy Cross Farm has that 50-acre plot by the river, which you never used. Donate it for the creation of a sanctuary for rescued animals. Finance its construction and maintenance for the next 5 years, and issue a public apology acknowledging the mistake. Robert let out a dry laugh. Have you lost your mind, girl? That land is worth millions, and to publicly admit, worth more than your reputation, Dad, than contracts with international companies that demand social responsibility, than your political future. The silence that followed was charged with tension. Everyone could see the gears turning in the businessman's mind, calculating losses and gains, assessing damage. I need time to think, he finally said. The live broadcast we organized with the press is scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m., Julia informed. Your answer needs to come before that. August's ranch had never received so many people. Since dawn, cars and motorcycles had been arriving, parking along the dirt road that led to the property. Reporters from local newspapers and Capital TV stations were setting up equipment. Animal protection activists were raising banners. Curious residents were gathering to witness the announced confrontation. Inside the house, August watched the movement with a mixture of apprehension and hope. Julia organized the documents, veterinary reports, Jack's recording, rescue photos. Megan paced back and forth, compulsively checking her cell phone. No response from my father, she reported, putting the device away for the umpteenth time. I don't think he'll come. He'll come, August affirmed with tranquility. Robert, Newman couldn't resist the opportunity to try to control the narrative. At 9:45 a.m., a helicopter appeared on the horizon. The noise of the blades made those present look up, shielding their eyes from the sun. The aircraft landed in a nearby field, raising dust and excitement. Out of it stepped Robert Newman, impeccably dressed in a navy blue suit, followed by his lawyer and a woman everyone recognized as his press secretary. The businessman walked with firm steps toward the ranch, ignoring the reporters who tried to intercept him. When he reached the porch where August, Julia, and Megan were waiting for him, his expression was unreadable. Before we start this circus, he said, low enough for only the three to hear, I want to see the horse. August nodded, leading the group to the transformed stable. Lightning was standing, his coat gleaming under the light that entered through the cracks. The scars were still visible, but his gaze was alive, alert. Upon seeing Robert, the animal slightly backed away. Something unexpected happened then. Robert's impassive face trembled, a genuine emotion breaking through the mask of control. For a fleeting moment, everyone saw a flash of shame in his eyes. "He's recovered well," he finally said, his voice hoarser than normal. "Thanks to Mr. Mitchell," Megan replied. "He slept beside Lightning for weeks, treating his wounds, talking to him during the early hours." Robert turned to face the veterinarian. "Why? Why care so much for an animal that wasn't even yours?" August held the businessman's gaze without hesitation. "Because every life has value, Newman, something that money can't buy or replace." The silence that followed was interrupted by the press secretary, who nervously consulted her watch. "Mr. Newman, the broadcast will begin in 5 minutes. We need to position ourselves." Back on the porch, now transformed into an improvised stage, cameras and microphones were ready. The crowd gathered, expectant. Julia initiated the broadcast, briefly presenting the story of Lightning and the care he had received. Megan spoke next, her voice firm despite the emotion, about the responsibility that everyone had toward the living beings under their care. Then came Robert's moment to speak. He adjusted the microphone, looked at the cameras and the crowd, then at his daughter and finally at August. Years of public relations training had prepared him for difficult moments, but nothing comparable to this. "3 weeks ago," he began, his voice surprisingly vulnerable, "a horse named Lightning was found abandoned in the forest that borders my land. This animal belonged to Holy Cross Farm, my property." A murmur ran through the crowd. Robert took a deep breath before continuing. "Lightning was abandoned by my order after suffering an injury that would make him unproductive as a breeder. It was a decision." He hesitated, searching for the right word. "Unforgivable, motivated by greed and lack of compassion." The press secretary turned pale beside him. Clearly, this was not the rehearsed speech. The lawyer began to approach, but Robert stopped him with a gesture. "Observing the recovery of this animal, thanks to the tireless care of Dr. August Mitchell and my own daughter, I was forced to confront an uncomfortable truth about myself and about the way I've conducted my business for decades." Robert then announced the donation of the land for the creation of the Lightning Sanctuary, a refuge for animals rescued from mistreatment. He committed not only to the initial financing, but to implementing more ethical practices in all his companies. "This is not the end of a sad story," he concluded, looking directly at August. "But perhaps it's the beginning of something better." 6 months had passed since that historic morning at August's ranch. Winter was giving way to spring, and the fields surrounding the newly inaugurated Lightning Sanctuary were exploding with vibrant colors. What was once just an abandoned plot of land on the banks of the Golden River now housed modern and comfortable structures for dozens of rescued animals. August walked through the sanctuary with tranquil steps, observing the visitors arriving for the special day. Children ran excitedly, pointing to the horses, donkeys, goats, and other animals that grazed freely in delimited areas. Volunteers distributed educational pamphlets about ethical treatment and animal welfare. "Looks like it's going to be a success," commented Julia, approaching with a clipboard in her hands. "We already have more than 200 people registered for the official inauguration event." August smiled, a gesture that now seemed natural on his face, no longer the rarity of months ago. "Helen would be proud," he said, looking at the blue sky. This place was always her dream. Julia gently touched his arm. In the last few months, while working together on the sanctuary project, a deep friendship had developed between them. It wasn't romance, not yet, but it was something equally precious: companionship, mutual respect, understanding. "She's watching, August. I'm sure of it." On the other side of the field, Megan was supervising the final preparations for the ceremony. After the public confrontation with her father, she had made a difficult decision: to postpone the last semester of college to dedicate herself entirely to the sanctuary. Now, as the administrative director of the project, she combined her passion for animals with an unexpected talent for management. "The stage is ready," she announced, approaching August and Julia. Dad just arrived with the TV crew. Robert Newman had kept his word, and more. Besides donating the land and financing the construction of the sanctuary, he had used his influence to create a foundation dedicated to animal protection, which was already operating in 3 states. At first, many doubted his sincerity, suspecting a marketing ploy, but over time his commitment proved genuine. Robert's transformation hadn't been easy or instantaneous. There was resistance, relapses, moments of frustration. Decades of a mindset focused exclusively on profit didn't dissolve overnight. But with each visit to the sanctuary, with each interaction with the rescued animals, something changed in him, and his relationship with Megan, previously distant and formal, blossomed into something new and true. "Johnny is anxious to show Lightning's progress," commented Julia, checking her watch. "Their presentation is scheduled to close the ceremony." The Tahantiu boy had become a constant presence at the sanctuary. His bond with Lightning had evolved into something almost magical. Under the guidance of therapists and riding instructors, Johnny had not only improved his social and communicative skills, but also discovered a natural talent for connecting with traumatized animals. As the time of the ceremony approached, more people arrived. Local authorities, representatives of animal protection NGOs, journalists, entire families. The story of Lightning had touched hearts far beyond the limits of Golden Ridge, inspiring similar initiatives in other regions. When everyone was gathered in front of the stage, August went up to give the welcome. Looking at the crowd, he felt an almost indescribable emotion. There were people of all ages and social classes, united by a common purpose. 6 months ago, he began, his voice clear and strong. A horse abandoned to suffer taught us a powerful lesson about resilience, forgiveness, and transformation. Lightning didn't just survive. He showed us that it's possible to rebuild life after the deepest pain. His eyes found Julia's in the crowd, then Megan's beside her father. He saw Johnny sitting in the front row, anxiously swinging his legs. This sanctuary is not just a place for rescued animals. It's a reminder that we all deserve a second chance, that our mistakes, however serious they may be, don't need to define our future, and that compassion has the power to heal wounds that seemed incurable. After his speech, other speakers followed. Julia talked about the educational programs that would be developed at the sanctuary. Megan presented the expansion plans. Robert, visibly moved, announced new state animal protection legislation he was helping to approve. The highlight of the ceremony, however, was Johnny and Lightning's presentation. The boy who months before could barely interact with strangers now led the majestic chestnut horse in a series of synchronized movements to the sound of soft music. It wasn't an impressive technical display like those that happened in equestrian competitions. It was something deeper, the dance of 2 souls that had found healing in each other. When they finished, to emotional applause, Johnny dismounted and hugged Lightning's neck. The horse gently lowered his head, as if returning the gesture. Later, when most of the visitors had already departed and the twilight was coloring the sky with orange hues, August found himself alone with Lightning in the main pasture. The horse approached, touching his shoulder with its muzzle. "We did it, my friend," August murmured, caressing the silky coat. "You changed everything." "Talking to yourself, Mitchell?" Robert's voice sounded behind him, surprisingly gentle. "Just giving thanks," August replied, turning to face the businessman. The 2 men observed each other for a moment. The silence loaded not with tension but with a mutual understanding that would have seemed impossible months ago. "I never imagined I would be here," confessed Robert, looking around. "Working side by side with you, building something like this." "Life has these surprises," August replied with a slight smile. "Sometimes we need to lose our way to find the right path." Lightning whinnied softly, as if agreeing. On the horizon, the first stars were beginning to dot the sky, silent witnesses to a new beginning that no one could have predicted, but that now seemed inevitable, as if destiny, in its mysterious wisdom, had traced this encounter long before, that rainy morning in the forest. And as they walked back together to the sanctuary facilities, where Julia, Megan, and the others were waiting for them for a celebration dinner, August felt a deep certainty. There is no wound that time and love cannot